Hello there, YouTube land. Dan here from Geek Radio, doing another From the Long Box video. This is where I go through my collection, pick out a book, and talk about it. Sometimes it's a book that has impacted my comic book fandom in some way. Sometimes it's a book that I bought ages ago, finally getting a chance to read it and sharing my opinions on it. This week, with the upcoming release of Fantastic Four finally coming back to the pages of Marvel Comics, I thought I'd go through some of my collection and pick out notable Fantastic Four issues and talk about them. This week's a little bit of a cheat because you may see the Coming of Galactus, and as you can see with this, that is that issue, but it's not the actual issue itself. It's a True Believer reprint. So I don't own the actual issue, even if I did, I probably wouldn't be opening it or touching it anyway. But that does provide one of the benefits of these True Believer $1 issues, is kind of going into them and be able to read a classic comic. And the benefit of it too is that since it's a reprint, the coloring and stuff like that, it's much more vibrant of what it meant to be at the time, rather than getting the degrading look of what happens to comics throughout the ages. So they released that benefit as well. I also thought, going to these True Believer comics, I've had a bunch of them, but a lot of them I haven't read yet, and I wondered, like, how well do those single issues work by themselves? Is it, obviously this is one of the most famous comic book covers of all time, covering one of the biggest comic book stories of all time, but picking this issue up by itself, would this be something that you'd give to a new comic book reader who wants to read classic comics for the first time? Would it make sense? And, or for someone who's just trying to get into more of the classic book comics of the, yesteryear of the Fantastic Four run, does this by itself work, or does it seem kind of odd just plucking this issue out and reading it? Well, I think overall the main beats do fit. What's interesting, though, is that it doesn't actually start with Galactus. It starts with the Inhumans, the end of the Inhuman story, with Maximus and Black Bolt facing off, and we get that bit before we get into the actual Coming of Galactus story. And reading this, I noticed a few things. Man, just how much more interesting the Inhumans are when they're done by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and also just how fantastic Jack Kirby is at drawing the crazy face, that face right there, just the emotional, that like evil laughter. He's really great at showcasing that look. It's one of his biggest skills in a way. And the Inhuman story, actually, what had me thinking about was that Marvel Action Hour back in the day. It came out in the 90s, and realizing that took pretty much this exact story line took place right within that within that cartoon. Some adjustments overall, but it ends. That story ends, and then right from there it picks up with the Silver Surfer. And this is a showcase of how to build an entrance of a character, how to make a new threat feel important right away. It just slowly builds throughout the book. There's a lot of things going on here. As someone who's read the story, or at least notable of the story, I know what's going on, but I could see why so much excitement would be built. First, what they do smartly is they take the Silver Surfer, and he's introduced like kind of nonchalantly in a way, but he goes off against the Skrulls, and we see the Skrulls are petrified of him. And considering where this was at the time, knowing the Skrulls are one of the biggest foes of the Fantastic Four, were a very powerful foe. Anything that they're scared of immediately tells the audience, like, wow, the Skrulls, they're taken back by this character. That means something. If they're worried about him. Is he good or bad in a way, or what exactly is happening? And I also can imagine at the time how a character like the Silver Surfer went over. Like, it's so hard now to create new characters. Just to create a silver dude on a surfboard in space. Like, if Silver Surfer was never created and they try to create him today, would it go over, or people think it's too silly and stupid? Like, I do wonder that. Like, I feel like people are more open in a way, or maybe it was just that they didn't have message boards to go to, or maybe there were many letters that were written, who knows. But then, right from that, we just see epic craziness occurring. The sky is actually on fire. Loved how this was colored. It showcases the crowd sequences, just showing just the chaos that was occurring in the public, just everything right away. It's like we're out of one fire literally into another one. What exactly is going on here? Like, where is this coming from? Is it tied to the Silver Surfer character? What exactly is occurring? And how Johnny Storm, him trying to save people, is actually causing more problems because they just see a man on fire thinking he's the person causing it. So there were some really fun bits between the crowd and Fantastic Four. Especially, this was one of my favorite moments of this comic, was just the Thing taking out like your street dog, just with a little flick of the finger, just a little boom. I'm always a fan when that happens. I know Luke Cage did that in the Netflix series, just when he had the super tough guy and he just like boom, and just a quick flick of the finger and he's down for the count. And he was kind enough to give him his hat back and let him basically lean him up against the thing, showing Ben Gribbs a really tough dude, but he has a conscience as well, and he realizes the guy was he wasn't the worst thing in the world, so he was putting him in a spot where he'll be okay. But I think Thing is such a great character, and if you forget that at a time he was the biggest Marvel character. He was the Wolverine of Marvel for a while. That's why he had the Marvel 2-in-1 series, with him being the star of it. And reading these pages, you could see just fantastic, fun dialogue. He's tough. He's got a great look. And he has some of the best moments within this issue. And again, we get we saw the fire problem, and suddenly now again we see giant rocks appearing. Now, what again is happening? Even where the Fantastic Four can't figure out, when Mr. Fantastic is going crazy, or at least trying to study what's happening. We see him time passing by. He's not shaving. Some fun moments that maybe don't age super well between him and Sue Storm, a Invisible Woman, who was like, she's trying to get his attention, and he's like, "Don't bother me, I'm working." And Ben Grimm's like, "Man has to work, you got to let him be." And it's definitely of the time. And I would say the early Fantastic Four, the one thing that doesn't hold up as well at times is the way that Sue Storm is written. She's still, I think, a strong-willed character, and I think she certainly grows. But there are times where like that probably would not play as well. But that's just the progression of things. And then of course we get the Watcher showing up, and I gotta say, like, I, for some reason, always thought the Watcher first appeared in the Galactus story. I didn't realize he actually came before this, and because when he shows up, Sue Storm's like, "Oh, there's the Watcher," and realizing that he was actually in the pages of the comics beforehand, before this story. So that was something I learned. I think maybe, again, going back to the Marvel Action Hour comic cartoon, knowing that, I think that's how they played it then, so maybe that's why I had that idea. But also, the way Sue Storm's often written in this, she's the one providing the most commentary on what's happening, kind of explaining the stakes or the emotion. That tends to be her role a lot. Kind of letting people know just how insane this is, often the voice of the audience. And some fun interaction between Silver Surfer and the Fantastic Four. Human Torch trying to take him out. Reminds me of one of the few good moments of the Fantastic Four movies, that chase between Silver Surfer and Human Torch. And seeing, the Silver Surfer doesn't say a word in this really at all. And and then by the end, of course, we have the Coming of Galactus, and when he finally actually shows up, and as you can see, very different look, his first appearance, to what he is now. I think he's in look improved a great deal, with a giant G on his shirt, different colors, and he eventually obviously morphed into the more purple look. The helmet somewhat stayed the same, but we've seen him change throughout. And I really like the idea that Galactus looks a certain way based upon each culture and society. He reflects what they look like. So if he goes to a different planet, we've seen like his look will change, so it looks more like the people of that planet. I really like that idea, because it just it provides more of understanding of him not actually being necessarily a person per se, but more of a cosmic entity. So I appreciate, it's something I feel like they haven't really talked about the most. One page that really struck me as weird wasn't this ad for Infinity War, but was this page here. And just, it looks very digital. The coloring looks completely different. Everything about it looks off. And I thought maybe it was an ad, but no, it's about the Galactus page, or Galactus ship opening. So I want to go back and kind of read the original and to see if it looks any different, because that page just to me seemed just like it was redone in a major way to look a lot different, or if they didn't have the original copy, it just does not seem something of the time in any way, shape, or form. Even the designs look different. So that was one page I was like, what's going on there? But knowing this is one of the most notable comic book stories of all time, I think you could see why. It sets the blueprint of basically how to provide an understanding of how a major threat is coming for our heroes, in a way, making an important moment feel big and impactful, having high stakes without trying to verbalize it directly as much, just by showing how other characters that are frightened of him, just bringing a character like the Watcher, seeing everything, him willingness to break his code to try to save the planet, seeing all the things that basically led up to Galactus actually coming on the screen. I think it certainly it sets the anticipation exactly where you want to. And I'm actually somewhat surprised that he appears in this issue. I feel like if you did this book today, you'd get like the opening of the ship, and then it would be to be continued, and you wouldn't actually see him to the next issue. I don't just the way that comics are now. That at least my thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do think this is a good book you could read without having the context of what came before or what came after. Yes, the Inhuman stuff, obviously that's tying into the story, so you may not pick up on everything, but ultimately the most important piece, what you're getting this for, the Galactus story, it's all there. You don't really need to know much more than that. So it's challenging when you look like a book like this that is so notable. It's one of the most highly praised comics of all time. Does it fit within that? Obviously, this is just one piece of it, but it certainly sets the stage exactly how you'd want to do it. So it's showing what's great about the Fantastic Four, and what's so great about the imagination of Jack Kirby, and when him and Stan Lee just like went together so well, and they complemented each other really well, and with the imagination of Kirby along with just the excitement of the dialogue of Stan Lee, when it's on point, you get phenomenal comics, and that's this issue. So so if you're looking to pick this up or pick up other True Believer comics, I think this is a good one to go with. And if you can snag the real one, good luck, because I'm sure it's very, very expensive at this time. So alrighty, enough for me. Just remember that comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, thanks for watching.